Chapter 23 of Lorna Doone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore. Chapter 23. A Royal Invitation. Although I had for the most part so very stout an appetite that none but mother saw any need of encouraging me to eat, I could only manage one true good meal in a day at the time I speak of. Mother was in despair at this, and tempted me with the whole of the rack, and even talked of sending to Porlock for a druggist who came there twice in a week. And Annie spent all her time in cooking, and even Lizzie sang songs to me, for she could sing very sweetly. But my conscience told me that Betty Muxworthy had some reason upon her side. "Lat the young osper alone," say I. "Make such a do about 'en wi' hog's puddens, and hock bits, and lamb's meat, and whatten bread indeed, and brewer's ale afore dinner time, and her not to zit wi' no winder open. Drive me mad, he do, the ovey. Such a passel of fools. Do 'en good to starve a bit, and tak some on's wackedness out of 'en." But mother did not see it so, and she even sent for Nicholas Snowe to bring his 3 daughters with him, and have ale and cake in the parlour, and advise about what the bees were doing, and when a swarm might be looked for. Being vexed about this, and having to stop at home nearly half the evening, I lost good manners so much as to ask him, even in our own house, what he meant by not mending the swing hurdle where the Lynn stream flows from our land into his, and which he is bound to maintain. But he looked at me in a superior manner, and said, "Business, young man, in business time." I had other reason for being vexed with Farmer Nicholas just now, namely, that I had heard a rumour, after church one Sunday, when most of all we sorrow over the sins of one another, that Farmer Nicholas Snowe had been seen to gaze tenderly at my mother, during a passage of the sermon wherein the parson spoke well and warmly about the duty of Christian love. Now, putting one thing with another, about the bees, and about some ducks, and a bullock with a broken kneecap, I more than suspected that Farmer Nicholas was casting sheep's eyes at my mother, not only to save all further trouble in the matter of the hurdle, but to override me altogether upon the difficult question of damming. And I knew quite well that John Fry's wife never came to help at the washing without declaring that it was a sin for a well-looking woman like mother, with plenty to live on and only 3 children, to keep all the farmers for miles around so unsettled in their minds about her. Mother used to answer, "Oh fie, Mistress Fry, be good enough to mind your own business." But we always saw that she smoothed her apron and did her hair up afterwards, and that Mistress Fry went home at night with a cold pig's foot, or a bowl of dripping. Therefore on that very night, as I could not well speak to mother about it without seeming undutiful, after lighting the 3 young ladies, for so in sooth they called themselves, all the way home with our stable lantern, I begged good leave of Farmer Nicholas, who had hung some way behind us, to say a word in private to him before he entered his own house. "Wi' all the pleasure in life, my son," he answered very graciously, thinking perhaps that I was prepared to speak concerning Sally. "Now, Farmer Nicholas Snowe," I said, scarce knowing how to begin it, "you must promise not to be vexed with me for what I am going to say to you." "Vexed with thee? No, no, my lad. I have knowed thee too long for that, and I've either with my best friend afore thee, never wronged his neighbours, never spak an unkind word, never had no meanness in him, took a fancy to a nice young 'ooman, and never kep her in doubt about it, though there wasna much to zettle on her. Spak his mind like a man, he did, and right happy he were wi' her. Well a day, God knoweth best, I never shall see his like again, and he were the best judge of a dung heap anywhere in this county." "Well, Master Snowe," I answered him, "it is very handsome of you to say so. And now I am going to be like my father. I am going to speak my mind.' 'Right there, lad, right enough, I reckon. Us has had enough of preliminary.' 'Then what I want to say is this: I won't have any one courting my mother.' 'Courting of thy mother, lad?' cried Farmer Snowe, with as much amazement as if the thing were impossible. 'Why, who ever hath been doing of it?' 'Yes, courting of my mother, sir. And you know best who comes doing it.' 'Wull, wull, what will boys be up to next? Z'd ha' thought herself were the proper judge. No, thank 'ee, lad, no need of thy light. Know the way to my own door at last, and have a right to go there.' And he shut me out, without so much as offering me a drink of cider. The next afternoon, when work was over, I had seen to the horses, for now it was foolish to trust John Fry, because he had so many children, and his wife had taken to scolding. And just as I was saying to myself that in 5 days more my month would be gone, and myself free to seek Lorna, a man came riding up from the ford where the road goes through the Lynn stream. As soon as I saw that it was not Tom Faggus, I went no further to meet him, counting that it must be some traveller bound for Brendon or Cheriton, and likely enough he would come and beg for a draught of milk or cider, and then on again, after asking the way. But instead of that, he stopped at our gate, and stood up from his saddle, and halloed as if he were somebody. And all the time he was flourishing a white thing in the air, like the bands our parson weareth. So I crossed the courtyard to speak with him. 'Service of the King,' he saith, 'service of our Lord the King. Come hither, thou great yokel, at risk of fine and imprisonment.' Although not pleased with this, I went to him, as became a loyal man, quite at my leisure, however, for there is no man born who can hurry me, though I hasten for any woman. 'Plover Barrow's farm?' said he. 'God only knows how tired I be. Is there anywhere in this cursed county a cursed place called Plover Barrow's farm? For last 20 mile at least they told me 'twere only half a mile farther, or only just round corner. Now tell me that, and I fain would thwack thee, if thou wert not twice my size.' 'Sir,' I replied, 'you shall not have the trouble. This is Plover's Barrow's farm, and you are kindly welcome. Sheep's kidneys is for supper, and the ale got bright from the tapping. But why do you think ill of us? We like not to be cursed so.' 'Nay, I think no ill,' he said. 'Sheep's kidneys is good, uncommon good, if they do them without burning. But I be so galled in the saddle 10 days, and never a comely meal of it. And when they hear King's service cried, they give me the worst of everything, all the way down from London. I had a rogue of a fellow in front of me, eating the fat of the land before me, and every one bowing down to him. He could go 3 miles to my one, though he never changed his horse. He might have robbed me at any minute, if I had been worth the trouble. A red mare he rideth, strong in the loins, and pointed quite small in the head. I shall live to see him hanged yet.' All this time he was riding across the straw of our courtyard, getting his weary legs out of the leathers, and almost afraid to stand yet. A coarse-grained, hard-faced man he was, some 40 years of age or so, and of middle height and stature. He was dressed in a dark brown riding suit, none the better for Exmoor mud, but fitting him very differently from the fashion of our tailors. Across the holsters lay his cloak, made of some red skin, and shining from the sweating of the horse. As I looked down on his stiff bright headpiece, small quick eyes, and black needly beard, he seemed to despise me, too much, as I thought, for a mere ignoramus and country bumpkin. 'Annie, have down the cut ham,' I shouted, for my sister was come to the door by chance, or because of the sound of a horse in the road. 'And cut a few rashers of hung deer's meat. There is a gentleman come to sup, Annie. And fetch the hops out of the tap with a skewer, that it may run more sparkling.' 'I wish I may go to a place never meant for me,' said my new friend, now wiping his mouth with the sleeve of his brown riding coat, 'if ever I fell among such good folk. You are the right sort, and no error therein. All this shall go down in your favour greatly when I make deposition.